Are we ready to start? Can you all hear me?
I can hear you, Dave.
Okay, great. So sorry I got stuck in
Okay,
Sullivan
we're
County
all
over.
ready.
Okay, good. I see on YouTube. So I'll call the government operations meeting for the month of March to order. First, I need a motion to accept the minutes of the February government ops meeting. Could I have that motion, please?
I'll make that
So
motion,
moved.
Dave.
Motion by Paul. Do I have a second? Brian? Cassie? All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. First order of business is Board of Elections. I see Jay Curtis. Jeff, I see you on the screen. Jeff, you want to take over?
Take care of it. It's a nice picture of Cassie. Oh, there we go.
Jeff? Jeff, are you ready? All right, let's
Jeff's having some technical difficulties, so maybe we could skip him and go back.
okay. Sure, let's go back. Let's go on to the county clerk, Stephanie.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, Stephanie.
First thing I would like to do is make an announcement that the New York State Association of County Clerks is celebrating their 100th anniversary this year.
Well,
So pretty proud
congratulations
of-
to them.
And then I guess the next business is DMV. So at this point in time, we are finally got some sectional things put up so that we can have all 5 windows opened at DMV. That was done, I believe, 2 weeks ago. We had cut back due to the high number of COVID cases in Washington County. During that time frame, we were still able to do 3 appointments per 15 minutes, as well as doing our dealer work and our Dropbox work. 2 weeks ago, when they put my sections in, we process 150 people a day by appointments, as well as doing our dealers and our drop-off work. We have also were reached out by Albany for the Utica paperwork to see if we could help out at all. We have taken some of that work as well. We have taken about 6,000 pieces of mail that we've been processing as well. I have separated so that 2 of my employees are still in the vault working. Their jobs in there are to process the drop-off box, the dealer work, and the stuff coming from Utica, as well as answering the 2 phones that thank you to Alan for installing, as well as the 2 systems in there. I have now had the chance to actually be in my office after June 22nd when we opened up. There's still some slight issues at the door, but nothing like we were dealing with at the beginning, so we're weaning the staff back into doing that. I did not feel that it was safe or appropriate for my staff to be dealing with the public with the outrage that we were getting occasionally out there. So I took it upon myself to come in earlier in the day to get done what I could at my desk and be out there to deal with the customers that we had coming in. I would say 95% of our customers prefer the appointment scheduling. They can actually schedule their day as if they had a doctor's appointment or any other appointment for the day. It's less stress on them. It's less stress on my staff. And I can say at this point in time, we are up $10,000 from where we were as of the day we closed last year.
Well, that's nice news to hear.
So we are with the appointment system. The appointment system works. And at this point in time, we have done this across the state with the other county clerks. At this time, I am not seeing any time in my near future that I will going back to open the free-for-all doors for DMV. I will keep it as appointment only indefinitely at this point.
Matt,
Hey, Stephanie, I had 3 quick questions for you. I thought I read last week that now all DMV employees are eligible to get vaccinated. Is that the case, and are you taking advantage of that?
Actually, thank you to our public safety. Everyone in my office that had planned on getting vaccinated have been vaccinated. I still have 5 employees that do not want to get vaccinated.
Okay, great. Second question, I know when we first started, because things were in such a disruption, there were some issues with the phone systems, but it sounds like you've got those straightened out, so if somebody wants to call and make an appointment, that's pretty well taken care of that they can get through?
Nope, we're still getting drop calls on the county end, and we're still having some struggles, and it's not every day. I'm assuming it depends on the number of calls that are coming in. We still have people that do struggle to get through the phone lines.
Okay.
And
the third question is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
The third question is, when a decision can be made to reopen it back to the way it was, is that a state decision or is that the county clerk decision?
Well, as of right now, it is the governor's decision and the chairman of the board's decision because we are still all in lockdown. The governor has extended that through April 16th as well. At that point, it will be decided by the county clerks how they're opening their offices.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim.
Thanks, Dave. Stephanie, is there any conversation in regards to reopening the town or village remote DMV locations? I mean, we're losing money to the state by those individuals properly processing online on the online DMV. Is there any development there?
Unfortunately, at this point in time, we have not had the opportunity to go and to talk to the towns yet to see what their town requirements are with the social distancing and the governor's requirements. We are just actually getting our office back to full capacity. So until we get some more guidance on that and not being able to do anything other than by appointment, I can't even start looking at giving a date for opening the remotes. We would definitely like to open them again, but right now with the way things still stand, we don't have the guidelines or that authority to even look at that avenue.
Jim?
Follow up to Supervisor Hanky. Is that something that's been discussed in the control room? Or can it be brought up? Probably not a bit high priority
Not
issue, but
No, not specifically at this point that I recall.
So I know we identified another sort of hiccup in the phone system last week, and Melissa was working on it. Basically, the phone was ringing and ringing and ringing, and it wasn't going to, it should have been a prompt that said, hey, listen, we're not ignoring you. I don't know what exact wording is. But since discussing with Stephanie, maybe it's time that the potential of appointment system going on for an extended period of time, based on the governor's decision and based on what the county clerks decides to do. Should we really sit down and look and see if we can find another solution to that? See if there's a way we can modify the system to be a little smoother and more adaptive to what we're doing now versus what we're doing previously to that. Melissa, do you think we can get Terry together and see what we can do?
Yes, I'll talk to Terry and Stephanie and see if we have other options that maybe can be a little more user-friendly for the people calling in.
Okay, because it looks like Stephanie hasn't gotten to her county clerk office yet in her report, and we'll see about that. But it seems like the appointment system is going to be around for a while, and I think the same thing would apply to there and to other offices. So I know we're doing the best we can, and this two-week shutdown to clear everything up really worked well for 2 weeks. But now that it's over a year, I think we need to look at it and see what's going on, because we get another outbreak that could cause this issue again, and we should be prepared for that, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. I'll talk to both and see what we can come up with as soon as possible.
Okay. And we'll have to see if there's something else that would require an investment in other software to do that, help that better. So we'll keep up to date on that. Thanks, Melissa.
You're welcome.
Stephanie, you hadn't talked about the county clerk side?
The county clerk side is going good. We're up to date with everything. Our new safety wall has been installed. So we are still by appointment there as well. And that seems to be running very smoothly. We are processing passports, which some of our county clerks still are not doing. So we're getting back into the swing of that as well. They've all been retested and recertified for that. And we're moving forward, and I have staff that is starting to also, in their spare time, they are adding more information and expanding our time frame for information on our program, so that the online people have the ability to search more information, and our online service that we used that was set up prior to COVID, as well as what we are using, is flourishing very well. And I send up a check to Al every month with our portion, and it's been $5,000 or more of revenue that we're bringing in with the online search service that we have.
That sounds like a significant increase in people making use of the online services.
It is, and was very beneficial during COVID, because we could still have abstractors doing what they needed to do to help with the house sales and stuff like that. So it is very beneficial. We have people aren't coming in like they were to do research on property either, because they can do it right online.
Good. Anything else on the county clerk's office, Steph?
Nope, nothing at this time.
So just out of curiosity, I was writing some notes down here, saw one thing. When we went back to 5 windows open, how much did that increase our capacity to handle?
We went from
Appointments?
75 appointments a day to 150 a day.
That's great.
And right
That's
now,
great. That's a big change.
we are booked through Friday with a full 150, and we've started booking next week.
Okay. Sounds good. So the lead time is down also.
Yes.
And waiting for appointments. That's good news. Just as a note, Sam and Melissa. So we have other departments who are doing appointments also. When you make those calls, should we go back to those departments to see if there's any modifications they may need for appointments also?
Certainly, we can check into that as well.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions for Stephanie? Brian?
So first, I want to commend Stephanie for reaching out and getting the Utica worked and getting those windows back open, because that makes a big difference, and we appreciate that. And the second thing I just wanted to ask, do you have a feel for mortgage tax and where that's going and how much stuff is being processed? Because it seems like that's been quite a change from the pandemic also.
With the, let me see if I can pull up my report without losing you guys. Hold on just a second. They don't let me loose on the computer much in my office. Mortgage taxes have increased, or the amount that we're getting has increased between what we have with our local as well as the normal ones that we received. With the mortgages, with the interest rates dropping, we had a lot of individuals that refinanced. Let me see if I can pull up my... I also did get my, and I apologize for the delay, I did get my end of year report up to all your guys' mailboxes.
I saw that. Thank you very much.
So you do have our most, I apologize, I was not prepared for the mortgage tax today.
Well,
That's okay. I was just curious to see it. This looked like it had trending in the right direction with the amount of sales and stuff going on. I didn't know if you had seen a sharp increase or if it was, how much it was above normal.
so Stephanie, if you want, go ahead, Steph.
So last year, our mortgage tax, so last year's mortgage tax total basic, we increased by $300,000. Our additional increased by $111,000. Our special additional, which that goes to the state, so that's irrelevant at this point. And our local, we were at $455,000, and that money goes directly to, I believe that was put into place to cover the ACC loan,
Correct.
if I'm correct. So
I
there
believe you
has,
are, Steph. Al? Is that correct, Al?
What, Brave? The additional mortgage tax, yeah, is set aside for ACC.
Correct. Thank you.
And she looks like she's trending about $20,000 a month for the first 2 months of this year as well. Higher than last year.
Nice,
Uh,
nice.
That's good.
I hope it all
Thanks,
comes to
Stephanie.
Hampton
Didn't
too.
mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. Just had to find my right report, my right drawer that I was in, and
Any,
I'm
Okay,
still a
any-
paper.
any other questions for Stephanie? Well, thank you, Stephanie, for your report. We appreciate you coming in and talking about it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item agenda is Jeff Curtis. Did you get on board yet?
Yes, we did. Can you hear us now, okay?
We can hear you
You
now.
hear?
Very good.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I could see you fine, I unmuted, but it wasn't working on my computer, so. Tom and I are here. To start off for, last year, we, just want to say how our, clear ballot, the purchase of our clear ballot scanning machine and our, paper folder and our, letter opener, how that was a great success and helped us out greatly to get through that November election. Like I said, we sent out over 5,100 absentee ballots and received, we got back over 4,300 absentee ballots back. So by having that clear ballot scanner, we had to do our 3 machines, our 3% audit with having to count, do those 3 machines and then count over 4,300 absentee ballots. It would have took us well over 2 weeks to do that alone. And we accomplished that all in 1 day with that clear ballot high-speed scanner. So that was a big success with that purchase. So we wanted to, that helped out very greatly.
The trend that we have for the elections now is towards absentee ballots and early voting. We have stuff in place now for it to work. We're going to be able to have early voting to continue to be here at the Burgoyne Avenue site. And that is going to grow. That's what seems where legislation is going, is to have more people, more time available on early voting and easier absentee voting. So we have now the equipment in place to handle that.
And as far as our looking ahead for 21, we plan our early voting using, our same room that we used last year, right here at the complex. Going forward for this year. This week, right now, yesterday started the designating petition process. Filing goes through this Thursday, the 25th. That's be filing designating petitions. Something new too this year, they just suspended the opportunity to ballot petitions, and those were the write-in petitions, and they did away with that. That has been suspended for 21, so there'll be no opportunity to ballot petitions this year. Only after this, the next petitions will be the independent petitions, which will be in May, and the filing dates for those will be May 18th through the 21st, where you can get circulated independent petition to get an independent line.
On the town level, just to let you know, 10 of the Republican towns do petitions, 7 of them do caucuses. The Democrats,
We do all.
they do all caucuses.
We do all caucuses, our local level.
So now when you bump up to the next level, this year's election, there's only one countywide election, that's going to be DA, and there's nothing on the state or federal level whatsoever this year, unless something changes for special election or a judge retires or passes away, that something has to happen there. So it's much different than last year. We have village elections, which we've already done. In March, we ran 2 of them.
Oh.
And then we have school coming up in May. Primaries in late June, if there is a primary, and then the general election in November.
So Jeff or Tom,
Yeah,
Yep.
one question, opportunity to ballot, is that just for primaries?
yes.
Yeah, that's where they don't have a candidate, they would just, it's a write-in opportunity for the party to do a write-in ballot.
Okay,
So they would circulate a petition just to get their party line on the ballot with no candidate and just to do a write-in.
okay, but there will be write-ins in the general election.
Yes. You can,
Okay, thank
you can
you.
do a write-in on any, this is just it's an opportunity to ballot for a party line to get their line on the ballot.
You know, that's another thing that's changed too, that some of you know about, is that, with the presidential election, the governor got it changed that you have to have a certain number of votes received in that
Oh, it was in
election.
election law,
Election
wasn't
law.
the governor.
Yeah, okay, election law. That, to remain as a constituted party, and as a
So many
result, they didn't get
percentage.
enough. So 4 of them were dropped off, 4 parties were dropped off altogether from the registration forms.
So now you only have 4 major constituted parties now. It's the Democratic line, Republican line, Conservative, and Working Families.
Yep.
Okay.
Another thing we're gonna look into for inspector training, we wanna look into doing like a video training session to, rather than to in person, we wanna kinda look into trying to see about a video type training session that the inspectors can just log on to a video training session. So we're gonna look into that also for this year.
Just some numbers for you. Jeff looked them up here and is gonna read them off for our county. We have a total number of voters in Washington County of 39,068, and active voters are 37,124.
Well, this was at the end of last year, at the end of November.
And we had 72% vote in November at the presidential election.
So we,
That's a good turnout.
yeah, it was very good. Like I said, we had,
The early voting had over 5,000 people. The absentees had over 4,000 people. Almost 18,000 went to the poll sites.
I'm not sure. You got anything else you wanted?
Just some changes. We have a new deputy named Ashley for Republican. Leslie had retired, of course, and I'm now the Republican commissioner. You know, we're on our way for this year. You know, we're preparing and anticipating. One of the things we're anticipating is the machines. Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, but also too, I think that there's might be some more money help coming along down the road. We haven't heard too much about it, but I think there might be some more money down the road, some more help.
Yeah, the machines we have are 13 years old now.
So we gotta start looking into possibly start switching some of these machines out. I want to reach out to Geo at Dominion to see possibly having some kind of like a Zoom, a conference, like a Zoom call, and have you guys, have a participation that you can watch, have them do a presentation on the new waste machines. Warren County is, they're getting, switching some of their machines out. They're purchasing, I believe, 20, I think they're getting 25 or so. They'll be getting some of those delivered soon. And they're doing, they're not purchasing them outright.
They're leasing them.
They're leasing them, the lease program that, and everything's covered 100%, all the maintenance, road calls, all the, any kind of upgrades. So I'm going to reach out to Geo and see if I can get something set up where they'll do a presentation on that.
So I've got a question just to float by you. Right now, our building is locked. Code enforcement's here, we're here, and Meals on Wheels is in the other end. We had people call when they come to the door to be let in. Do we need to continue that practice?
Sam, that's your answer.
Yeah, the answer is yes to that, Tom, until later on we can.
Okay. Just checking.
Sam, you muted yourself.
I unmuted myself. All right. Yes, we need to continue that as we speak, Tom, until we get the clear guidance from the CDC that everything's okay to start opening stuff back up in its full
Okay.
context. It helps, what it helps do, Tom, is it helps monitor the number of people that show up in your office at one time. So if you had 4, 5, 6 people all of a sudden show up in your office is not equipped to have that type of personnel in there. And you just be rotating people back in and out of the office at one time.
Yep, makes sense.
So there is some method to the madness.
Okay. And also, I just wanted to put in too, is that we do appreciate being in this building. If last fall, November election, we had had to do early voting over in the old building, it would have been horrific.
Yeah, it's nice over here. We got, a lot of space with that room. It's a good location.
Bob, you had a question?
I just wanted to clarify, there is no state aid for purchasing new machines now. They made us, switch over to the thing. There was some state aid for the original purchase, but now all the subsequent stuff is all on our dime. Is that correct?
I'm not sure, coming down the road, there might be some kind of aid down the road. I don't have clarification on it yet.
Yeah, there's nothing in the pipeline for grants or anything like that. It's just talk at the moment.
Okay.
The Russian-made ones are going to be available soon.
Yeah.
Well, the Chinese are bidding too.
Anything else, Jeff or Tom?
No, it's good.
No?
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Jeff or Tom? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your report. Matt Jones.
Doing today. I'm gonna start with the parks today. We're gonna just give you an update on them. We're moving forward with the parks like it was a normal year. We're following all the guidelines right now that are given to us. It looks like we're gonna be able to put the picnic tables back out and rent the pavilion this year, according to the State Department of Health. So last year, we dictated the steps we were taking to open it up because everything was closed. I think this year, the way things are changing and they are opening up or closing faster, I think if we could just get the okay to move forward according to the State Department of Health guidelines and leave it at that. And then I can just update you every month, like, yep, we're going to be able to have all the picnic tables out. And yes, we're going to be able to, rent the pavilion. It looks like we're going to be able to do all this stuff right now. So I'll leave it at that. And as long as you guys are okay with me just updating, the way that things change, I don't think monthly meetings would be advantageous for us. We'd be a little slow on the gun waiting every month to bring the last change in the guidelines to you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any questions for the parks? Next topic, Matt.
Just going to update for those who don't know, the roof is going to start. The project is April 1st over at Burgoyne. So that'll be the date of the actual construction starting. I believe they're unhooking the mechanicals on the roof now and in prepping for that. So if there's any questions on that, I'll just move forward unless there is.
So just a question, how's that going to affect the pods over there?
Well, for the best I know, you probably asked Sam. I don't know if there's any other plans. It doesn't look like we're going to be working any weekends. Possibly the very first weekend they're going to be working. as we get a little closer here, obviously being a roof is a little weather dependent. If you get 4 days worth of rain, it's gonna push the project back 4 days. You know, they're not gonna tear a roof off if it's gonna look like rain for 4 days or something like that. But I imagine I've been in contact with Tim and Sam, and I'm sure they must have some sort of plan, you know, if they couldn't use it for a certain day.
Yeah, the plan is, Dave, is that we will use it on the weekends because they feel that it will be okay for us to use on the weekends, construction wise. And we're looking at doing just one pot a week, which would be on that Saturday or Sunday, preferably on that Saturday. And if we have a vaccine that comes in that has to be used, then we will find an alternate site that we can utilize for that purpose.
Okay, thank you. Next, Matt.
I think Brian's got a question before we move on.
Well, I was
Yeah, do we
trying
have
to
an
move forward here.
expected finish, a completion date? An expected completion date, Matt?
All weather pending. I mean, probably soup to nuts would be all done in less than a month. I imagine the most part of the construction will be done in 2 weeks, the actual roof and getting it watertight again. There is the trim around the outside and all your flashing and stuff like that, that kind of, as with any project, it's the trim part that starts taking a little longer, but the actual bulk construction probably would be close to 2 weeks if we have a good stretch of weather.
So the 1st of June, you figure it'll be all done no matter what?
Oh, yeah. Just so you know, if you're over there, there's signs that are posted, which are legal signs. The job, when we bid it out, could start no earlier than August 1st or April 1st and end no later than August 1st. They're choosing to go right off the get-go. Do I expect it to ever last August? No. It's going to be probably done within, like I said, 3 weeks, I would say.
Thanks for that. Next.
All right. I'm just going to hit on the electric charging stations that I was supposed to bring back some information from finance to here. I didn't get the information back that I needed yet. We had walkthroughs last week with our electricians and some other companies. As of this morning, right when the meeting started, I didn't get any more information yet. So I'd imagine it'd probably all come in this afternoon. You know, that's the way things work. But I did have our electrician here and he's given us a hard price on getting the power out there. And he also brought up some other ideas on how to get power out there that the first company didn't, look at or realize. So we do have some things to talk about. I just don't have the information to talk about them right now.
Okay. Then we'll move that to finance and talk about it in finance. Or do
Yeah, I'll
or do you
move
want
that, Dave.
or do you want to talk about in DPW? So,
What's that?
or do you want to talk about in DPW so we have the precursor before finance when we make a decision about the money?
That would work.
So you want to amend your motion to move it to DPW for discussion?
Yeah, I'll move it to DPW.
Do you
I'll
have a second
second
on that?
I'll second Paul.
Okay, Paul seconds it. Any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
It was your motion. You can't oppose it, Brian.
I've
All
done
right.
that.
It's going
It's just late.
It's going to DPW. Okay. Anything else, Matt?
I'm just going to bring up the DPW barn update. We sent out the proposal from ME Engineering on the study that would get us to the point, our next point of landing on this project. I don't know if everybody had a chance to read it. If you want to discuss that now, I think now's the time when you would decide how much each partner is in for, and if they wanted to do this study. And I'm gonna leave it off at that and let you guys, if you have questions for me, go ahead and ask them of me. But I think this now it's up, it's up to the supervisors to decide where you go from here.
Okay, have anyone had a chance to read that DPW report for the barns? Day and a half.
I did a speed read, but one thing that stuck out to me was the way it reads, and almost like they assume that we have a city connection for water and sewer. If we're gonna have to dig a well or design a septic and a leach field, that certainly would be, I think, part of that study. But it says that in it, I can't believe the exact wording, but it would almost be like you would plug and play, like you would hook up to utilities. Well, our water and sewer is not a utility, it's our own. So I just wanted to make sure that we wouldn't have a follow-on overrun bill, because that was not in the initial scope.
Matt?
The answer to that, Dana, is I read it again and I did ask. It's to develop, like if the eastern site that we are picking, obviously, just like you said, it would be our own well, our own power, our own septic. Fort Ann does have municipal water at that site up the road right there, and the sewer is not far away. So this part of the study would just tell us, is it feasible to use that stuff? And the other site, it would be some of the feasibility is, oh, you want to put the barn a half a mile off the road? Well, it's going to cost, X amount of dollars for the power to get there. And this is the size of, septic you would need. This is the amount of water you need. This is the part of the study where they start talking to Deb and me, what are you putting there? So we can get an idea of the size of the septic, the size of the well. There's no sense of planning a $3 million barn out in the field if there's no water there. So this would give us the ideas of what's there, but it wouldn't go into detail of engineering how to do it either.
So right, I was going to make that point. What you're saying is they would say you need to do septic, or you can hook up to the water, or you need electricity coming in here. So they're not going to give you the cost estimates for bringing that in. They're going to give you this is what needs to be done.
This is what needs to be done, and they're going to give us a construction budget cost. So they're going to look at that, and in other scenarios, it's 1,000 feet out to the barn. This would be ideally, how much power it would cost to get there. You would need a septic of 5,000 gallons. This is an idea of what a 5,000 gallon septic in this area would cost. So that's how they would start developing budget numbers to build these buildings.
Matt Hicks? Matt Hicks?
Asked and answered.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Matt?
Yeah, if we're talking about this, let's talk about this. So Matt, you got us a quote of $53,500. That would be for the first step, not construction documents and the whole 9 yards. It would be an overview of the whole situation. So we need to either decide if we're going to move forward with this or not move forward with this. If we're going to move forward with this, what's our share, what's Fort Ann share, what's Easton share, so that Easton and Fort Ann can go back to their board to say, here's what the proposal is for their share, and have them approve it, so that we're all in the same thing moving forward. I just don't want to spend month after month talking around this issue. Let's tear it all out, get it decided now, and either decide we're all going to move ahead or we're not.
Okay. Brian?
Okay, so I guess I'll start and then you can shoot it all down.
Okay.
I'm going to say that there's 2 barns, so there's 4 partners, and the county's partners with 2 different towns. So the county share would be 2, and each of the towns would be 1. So I'd split it 4 ways, and the county would pay 2 shares, and each town would pay 1. That's the easiest way to get started, in my opinion.
So Brian, there is one village involved, isn't there? Potentially involved? Isn't
We
Fort Ann
don't know
Village?
that. Well, I don't know. I didn't hear if Fort Ann Village was interested or not.
Still working on them with that, but that the town may be willing to make that move for them. So I would figure their price included in the 4, and with the 4, that would be part of what Fort Ann was paying.
So breaking that down, that'd be $26,750 for the county and $13,000 375 for each town. Is that what you're proposing, Brian?
Yes.
Day and a half?
And even though the towns are larger than the county as far as their need?
At this point, yes, I think when you go to the engineering, you would do it that way, the other way. I think at this point, you're just deciding whether it's feasible to do it or not. That's what this is gonna give you. I think when you go to the next, then you're gonna have to break it out by the size of the building and who gets what portion of it.
Okay.
Matt Jones?
I did ask the engineers as part of this study, this is where they would develop that percentage of the county split each farm. So out of this, it might be 66-33, it might be 70-30. This would give us that recommendation to go forward with.
Matt Hicks?
Okay, so what we need, Matt, this is an agreement with the county, with this engineering firm, our engineering firm, to do this. And they're looking at us to sign this. So I would suggest we need a copy of a written resolution from each of the two towns saying that they're in for that 13,375 before we sign this. And once they get on board, what committee here says we're good for our 26 and change so that we can move this forward? Would that be through finance?
I'm gonna say the full board because first of all, if both towns agree, we could go right to finance into the full board, but I think finance is before they probably meet. They need to have their meeting first, the towns. So I would think it would go right to the full board.
So we can run through finance to say, we're in contingent on the two boards approving it, and if they approve it at their town board meetings, we can go to the full board, right?
Right, I think it goes straight to the full board if they come back with that information. I think that would be the wise thing to do rather than to hold it up. But at the other side would be if only one town does it, we go back to the drawing board on this because then one's just a county site and the other one is split between the county and the town. So that would change everything if both don't go.
Correct.
So our process, normally we go from here to finance and then to the full board. So if we pass the resolution out here today, 40 to finance, with this contingent on receiving feedback from the towns on what they would take it, pay in their share, then we would save that time a little bit, wouldn't we?
It's according to when their meetings are, Dave. If the town board doesn't meet until after finance, which I think they don't, then you have a problem. So we would go to finance or right straight to the full board. You want a resolution from the town? That's what I want.
I need a, Sam?
On behalf of the town of Fort Anne, we can do a special meeting if we need to meet the requirement there for the finance committee or get it so we can move it rather than waiting and losing another month if that's what you so desire.
Matt Hicks?
Well, why can't we move it to finance and then at finance, move it to the full board contingent on receiving the resolution from the two town boards prior to the board meeting?
Yeah, we could do that.
And that way we have a linear path.
You might not
to the
know
end.
anymore, but at finance, it would just be moved in finance. Then it's kind of.
That gives the two town boards time to have their meetings, get it prepped and make a resolution to move forward.
Mr. Shaw?
My thoughts on the matter, I don't care how you move forward, but other than I think you should give something formal to each town as far as the request so that I have something to take to the town board. And especially I think a copy of this specifications that Matt has prepared and the costs and something from the county saying that it would be 13,000 whatever for the town to enter into this. And that would be more formal. And I think the board would be more anxious to take action one way or the other.
When is your town board meeting, Dan?
The 5th of April. If you could send something to us, then I would present it at the April board meeting.
Okay. When's our finance meeting?
8.
Brian? 8. So that would work.
April 8th.
Okay,
Yep.
so Melissa, could you work with whoever you need to prepare that formal request to the towns and provide them the information they need?
Yeah, I'll talk to Matt and I'll get together with Roger. We'll come up with something.
Okay, thank you. Sam, I guess I got you next.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to see if the chairman of DPW committee wanted to chime in on this. Jay?
Hey, good.
The only thing I wanted to ask Matt Jones is if one of the two towns decides not to go forward, does the price change on the total engineering package?
Yeah, I would have to run that back by the engineers and see what the new price would be. I mean, it would be a simple change in their proposal. It wouldn't have to go through the whole thing again really quick.
One project would change quite significantly because we wouldn't be looking at a different location, so.
That's right. And I think the scope of work might change if we were just by ourselves, you know, because the consolidation part would be out.
So could you ask,
Oh, go ahead, Dave.
could you ask Matt for the other two scenarios if one town is involved, another drops out, or no towns are involved?
I think
At least we'll have those numbers.
It'll be a little bit of a rework. It won't be, I mean, I can have them do it, but each site's different. So I think they would back up because the site location would change. If per se Easton decided not to go, we would have a completely different site. The scope of work would change. I think, in my opinion, and I don't know if it's yours, but it almost cut that part of it off and break it out and then, you know, almost go like with half of this and then get a new proposal just for ourselves for whatever location. If it was Fort Ann, we would have to go back to the drawing board. I mean, if Sam comes back, we don't own the property behind there, so it would be a completely different project. I think we almost have to scrap and start over if that change happens.
Okay. Cassie?
I guess I just want to clarify, this split is only for the engineering, because when we get to the next step, if we actually start building a building, I don't think that 30-70 split is really fair. Then you're probably going to have to change that, right? These towns are going to have to be on the hook and pay for the engineering. And if they decide after they see the plans and they don't want to participate, they still need to pay their share of the engineering. And then there'll be a new percentage split for the actual construction, wouldn't there?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we know that and that the towns know that they don't think they're just going to pay this 13,000 and be cool, that there's going to be a new ratio and a new fee as things go on.
Okay.
That'll come out of this study. Yeah. Those percentages.
So any other questions or comments? So I would entertain a motion to move this to finance with the split as we discussed, and that we're going to get for something formal to the towns in the next a few days, hopefully by Monday, so they can evaluate it and hold a special meeting if they need to, because they'll need notice time. So I would entertain that resolution. Is that what we need for a resolution? Yes,
I'll
Brian.
move it, Dave, but I think the minutes are also a pretty formal, I mean, if it's worded exactly what was said here, and it usually is, I think the minutes are almost formal enough, but I could see having something a little more streamlined that was user-friendly when it gets to the town.
Yeah, I think we should there's a second. Yeah, I think we should have a formal resolution so people understand it.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Dan Shaw?
Yes, would this study also somehow highlight what the savings are for the town and the county to do this together? Could that be helpful or beneficial to the towns to say that by doing this, we're going to save our taxpayers X number of dollars? Or is that something that we will have to guess at? Or will the study identify that?
It isn't in the scope of work to come up with the actual savings, Dan.
It is, okay.
It's assumed that there is savings by doing this together. But in the scope of work, it isn't gonna give us a dollar amount to go to your board.
But so there's not going to be anything that's going to show a saving or what the savings would be? Or we're just assuming there's a saving?
Well, I would probably go back to our original study and get the estimated savings out of the first one. But as far as I'm reading in this, there's nothing in here that's gonna give us hard dollars amount of what you're gonna save.
Brian?
I think in the report that we send out to the towns that summarizes and clarifies all this, there should be something that mentions the shared services and what money's available there by doing it together. I think also it should reflect that that towns will be able to use the county's bond rating to secure money cheaper than you can secure it any other way. I think those sorts of things can be included, but to have a definitive number, you can't until you have a definitive number of the project. But I think those things are an extreme favorite on working together. So I think that you can show that's an extreme amount of money in the total project. Yes.
Good, thank you.
So should we include that first study? Because I'm sure the towns haven't seen it, so that may answer some of the questions on potential savings.
I'll look into that, and I think it was more about efficiencies and everything, but I'll look back through it and see if there was any numbers. But I think what Brian just hit on, the money that's available for shared services, and that's the end of it, that where you're going to be saving money is the borrowing rate and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, thank you. B&A.
Dan, I don't think there's any way you can get a dollar amount on the savings because the sheet of plywood has doubled over a year ago. Prices fluctuate so much. You wouldn't, instead of savings, it's going to cost you more than it did a year ago. But overall, will you pay less? Yes, come back to Al Nolet's, what's the definition of savings? It's, if money's going out the door, you're not saving a penny.
Well, I think Brian hit on it. I'm not so much looking for a dollar number. I'm looking for the potential of savings. And I think he identified it with the shared services and interest rates. Things like that is what I think that the board needs to hear if they want to make a decision.
So, yeah, I think the other thing is hopefully we can get some money back from shared services from the state to help with this project also. So we'll see. We have a motion and second on the floor. Any other comments from Matt Hicks?
So I'm channeling my inner Al Nolet today by being a little bit of a storm cloud.
No trouble.
What do we do in the event that either town can't make a decision or can't pull the trigger in April? Do we delay until they can get their act together? Or is it a commitment that says, make your decision in April, and if you can't decide yes, we're taking no for the answer and we're moving forward without you? Where's the deadline here? I just don't want us to stay in limbo for months at a time until a decision gets made. As long as we all know what the linear path here is and what the timetable is so we can move forward, I just want to have us all on the same page.
So as we talk,
because I'm afraid one of the boards is going to say, we need more time. We're going to talk about it in May. I'm not opposed to that idea as long as we give them a deadline and say, okay, we need a commitment by May or whatever it's going to be. I don't want this to string out for months and months and months.
Sam and Dan, Sam and Dan, do you think you can come up with that resolution by our finance meeting?
I think Matt's made a good point. I can't speak for the board, and my concern is, and Matt's brought it up, what if they have one or two questions or three questions that they would like answered before they make that decision? That's quite an undertaking to drop on a town board that has not been in all these discussions, even though at every board meeting, I mentioned to the board, we're working on this and moving forward with it at the county level. I think that I would say the cutoff would be the May board meeting. I think if it takes a month for the people to mull things over at the town level, that's fine, but I would say in or out by May. But I just give them an opportunity to come up with any questions to get answered. I'll get them the answers they're looking for or the best explanation as I can, and then we make the decision, we're in or out at the May board meeting. I
So-
didn't think there was that much of an urgency. We're starting to make this urgent. But I also agree with Matt that if you don't set an end date to this, it could go on for years, and I don't want to see that either.
So I was going to suggest that Dan and Sam may want to invite Matt Jones to their board meeting to ask any questions that may come up that may resolve some of the issues the board has. He certainly has the most in-depth knowledge of anyone in the county about this at this point. He's got a lot of time invested in it, and anyone else that either one of you feel would help answer some of those questions, please reach out to them to see if they would join in. Matt, I'm sorry I promised your time, but.
Oh, that sounds like a good idea. I'd rather have the, answers right than have things flying around that aren't.
Sam, I had your hand up next.
Oh, we're good.
Sue Clary was next.
Was there a third location talked about?
No, not right now.
Thank you. Should there be?
Not right now. Not at that point, at this point.
Thank you.
Brian?
So Sam, just don't have your meeting the same night and the same time as Dan so that Mac and Jones can't be in 2 places at once.
We're good.
But the second thing was the urgency on this part is only because it could take 2 years to be ready to build from the day you decide. That's where the urgency lies, is you're still 2 years away from building a thing if you decided today. I think that's the only urgency. It takes a lot of planning and setup to get there.
And I think that the other thing that Brian's been looking into potential of finding more grants to help out in grant areas. There might be some more money available now that wouldn't be available in a couple of years. So I think that's one thing that we should keep in mind. So without any other questions, I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next on the agenda was Good Friday being Roger.
Good Friday now? I'm okay
Good
with
Friday
that.
now.
All right, so we discussed it. When was the last time we discussed it? The board meeting, maybe? About our annual, are we open or closed on Good Friday for alcohol sales? I use the term we loosely since the county doesn't sell alcohol. But there is a regulation in the state liquor authorities regulations. It says that Washington County is one of, along with Essex County, parenthetically, the counties that closes from noon to 3 to alcohol sales on Good Friday. And so I inquired as to how to change that. I was told by the liquor authority that we simply pass a resolution asking for them to delete it. It would go to the liquor authority. They would conduct a public hearing somewhere in Washington County at some time of their choosing, and then decide whether or not to lift it. So will it happen by this Good Friday? Absolutely not, was what I was told. But it would happen by probably next year if we went through the process. So we could simply pass a resolution if that's what you want to do, send it to the full board and wait for the word from the liquor authority.
So this, Matt?
Move it.
I'll second it.
If Paul Ferguson moves it, I'll second it.
I'll move it.
Okay, Brian, Paul Ferguson and Matt, just out of
Let
that.
Paul move it.
Any discussion?
Guess we all
This
know
is
what
to
you
go-
want to do on
this-
Good Friday.
This is to take it to the full board, so the full board can pass a resolution, send it to the state.
That's correct.
Dana Half.
I think the law does not address consumption of alcohol during those times during Good Friday. So what we do now is accomplishes zero. So let's go ahead and allow sales. If you can consume it, but you can't buy it, what did you gain? Nothing. So do away with the law.
You lose revenue.
Well,
Wow.
funny enough, when I first thought about this, I thought, ironically, if recreational marijuana comes through, you possibly could purchase recreational marijuana, but not alcohol on Good Friday. And it's just, let's just do away with this.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried? Okay, we talked about it, the full board meeting, the emergency closure plan established in 2020. Sam asked me to bring it up today and discuss whether that still applies and any modifications that should be made to this. I think that we're still under, and Sam, I'll let you address this because you and the COVID crew have been in touch with the governor all this time, and Bob been in touch with the governor's office and understand this. And I actually read through this and I didn't see much that we're not adapting to at this point. So Sam and COVID team, would you please give us your feelings and your.
Sure. I guess my first question would be, what is it that you think needs to be done or has been done that shouldn't have been done? I guess that's the question. Look at the plan, I go over it, and I feel it really needs to be changed, or the incident management team felt they to be changed. We've been working on that plan. So I guess those would be my questions. What is it that we feel needs to be changed or updated or thrown out, or whatever the case may be?
And a half.
I'll start off since this was kind of my idea to come up with. I think back a year ago, when everyone was talking about flatten the curve for 14 days, we considered an incident to be a very short-lived thing, and you had to have flexibility to operate on the ground. It's a year later. It turns out if we were going to Monday morning quarterback this, we would not have given the incident management team the wide latitude of powers that they have in this. These pages are not numbered, so it's hard for me to refer to something. But my problem is the democracy of this. We have elected people. Back a year ago, we really didn't know how quite to do Zoom meetings. We're very adept to that now. So we don't really need an incident management team to make on-the-spot decisions for weeks and months and a year. I think in hindsight, maybe if the incident management team, the powers that they have in here, where they can assign duties at their sole discretion, you need to have like a 48-hour window on that sunset clause. Back then, my complaint was that this document had no sunset clause. Also, the document's a little contradictory. It says the COVID-19 incident management team is going to meet daily to assess the situation, make appropriate recommendations to the chairman of the board and the full board of supervisors, and measures that they feel should be implemented. What recommendations? You don't make a recommendation to a body if you operate at your sole discretion. It's contradictory. I could see where, you could operate at your sole discretion for 48 hours at the most. In my line of work, an emergency was an emergency. It wasn't something that you filed to make it easier to cut through the red tape with the state. But I would like to see this suspended now. We have other plans. If we ever brought this back in, or we have months of committee meetings that we can fine tune what this plan would be, because this plan is a contingent plan that could be activated at any moment. It needs to be a little bit more wordsmithing done to this. I don't like the power that this gives to unelected officials. I understand an emergency, an incident, you have to do things. We're going on a year now. It shouldn't be.
Okay. Other comments?
Tim, do you want to respond? I think you're on.
My apologies. I don't have the right name on there today. No, I don't have any response to that, other than obviously we continue to be in contact every day with anything that changes relative to guidance or anything like that. But I can assure you, no decisions are made by anyone other than the chairman. I mean, certainly we advise on guidance or anything that's happening here in our communities relative to vaccine or current infection rates, anything like that. I don't feel any one person is making any of those decisions other than the chairman.
But can I reply to Tim?
Yep.
These are words within the four corners of the page. At the end of the day, this rules regardless of what your intent is. And I'm glad you didn't do anything, but you could have people come in that read the words on the page and implement it by this, which is perfectly proper. And I think just because you guys, he said you haven't done anything without the chairman of the board being involved, but this allows you to do things. So this document should not remain as it is.
So we are still in the pandemic. In my opinion, there are still the eventualities that we may have spikes in COVID over the next. There's other emergent strains coming in. And the big question I have, and the response team who's in contact with the governor's office could probably ask this and answer this. Could there be potential restrictions on revenues being reimbursed to us if we don't have an emergency closure plan in place? Bob or Sam, you're in touch with this all the time.
Go ahead, Bob, now I'll answer.
I think that's probably fairly likely, actually.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think that one of the reasons for, needing something like this beyond the fact that it could be a club to strike us with after a while if we don't have one, is that this plan has to be kind of tailored right now to function the way the current Albany administration functions. And it has been very much as, especially in the beginning, but pretty much over the whole year, there's been a kind of a stream of consciousness sort of thing. We would get, news releases about, we were going to do this, we're going to do that, and then suddenly on late Friday afternoon, we would get the actual guidance, which would be something different. The plan has got to be fairly nimble. If, we put it off and wait for, the mandatory time to notice a meeting and have a committee meeting about it, we're going to be, behind the eight ball and actually damaging our constituents who wouldn't be getting the vaccines and things that they would need because of that. I think that under different legislative circumstances, the plan might be different. We might well want to change it in a year or two, but I think right now it's got to be a very nimble sort of plan. And I think this is. I'm not as concerned about it as Dana is. I understand his concern. I mean, that's, we are the elected officials. We are the ones that will take the responsibility, but we also hire good people to administer our programs in the field. And I think we've got to, in some sense, trust them.
Ryan Campbell?
Yeah, so I think they both hit it pretty well, but I do believe where Dana went is it's probably not worded exactly the way it should be when we come out of it and have it sitting on the shelf for the next emergency. So I would suggest in the next couple of months, you do make this something in government ops where we look at how that should be worded when we get out of this emergency and how it's going to sit on the shelf to come in for the next one, because we could be a little more prepared the next time so that everyone is taken care of in a sufficient manner and so it isn't contradictory. I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't do that.
Or mandate reviewing it annually.
Or reviewing it annually.
And actually do that instead of just stamping them the way we usually do.
Yeah, we're supposed to review them annually.
Right, actually review it.
I just think that would be a good way to look at it because Dana brings up some good points. And,
I just want to point out that, and I hope, oh, sorry, Brad. I just want to point out, Brad, you mentioned government ops. I think it's very clear that if we have any kind of emergency, that that should go before public safety. That's where it belongs, not in government ops. Okay, because it's your incident team that's responsible for that and assign that responsibility. That's the committee they report to. So, if you want to go down that road, then I think it's the committee that has responsibility for public safety, and that's not government ops. We have a public safety committee for that.
Point well taken.
Sue Clary.
As elected officials, we interview and look at the people that we hire in our public safety and our department heads. And our responsibility there, as we interview applicants, is to recognize the fact that they can go on a 30-day schedule, and God forbid they have to go into crisis management, are they capable of doing that? All of our department heads have shown us their professionalism and their ability to do that. So that goes back to as elected officials, we've hired people that can do the job in both extremes. And so actually, I think it's worded as if we need to take our responsibilities seriously when we do our interviews, and we've done that. And so I can't think, I can't imagine something going through a 30-day process in a crisis. They've been operating on a 48-hour, like Bob said. It changes daily. So we're going to bring that to department head, and then we're going to send it to finance, and we're going to bring it to the board, and then we're going to have a different crisis or a different thing that we need to do. So I can't thank everybody enough for their good work. And, Dana is looking out for democracy, and that's great, but this is democracy in action in crisis mode.
Dave, if I can respond to Sue?
Yes.
Sue, one of your largest jobs at the county, being elected as a town supervisor, is oversight. You cannot give up your oversight when you sign off that says right here, the chairman of the board and the COVID-19 incident management team shall have the authority to direct as needed employees to work and carry out such duties as the task force may assign them at the task force sole direction. I understand. I've been in plenty of emergencies. People have died. You've got to be able to have freedom, but it's a short time you have freedom before the oversight comes back in. You can't conduct oversight if you say, I hired you to do this, away you go. You still have to be able to conduct your oversight.
Well, we still have,
Can I respond?
go ahead, Sue.
Unfortunately, whether the department heads like it or not, but I talk to them frequently, and I'm sure you do too. And that's our oversight, I believe.
Our oversight also needs to make sure, in my opinion, that we're able to respond immediately to crises like the pandemic and COVID. And we don't have time to get around and look at it and study it and bring it to the board and bring committee department chairs in to do this. So we really need to respond quickly on some of these things. Our oversight also extends to if we find something that was mishandled, that's part of our oversight also. So we're not totally relinquishing our oversight in all this. So I guess the really question is that, is there in the GovernOps committee's mind the need to make changes at this point, or to make sure that we're prepared for future pandemics? Having heard none, we'll leave it where it is at this point.
Can you not see Brian?
Hey, Dave. Dave, I think we do have to leave it where it is right at this very point. But it may need something more in it as far as the emergency part. Maybe if this thing was done right, it should give the chairman of the board, whoever that may be now, 20 years from now, 100 years from now, the ability to enact that for 48 hours without us convening until we convene. Maybe it needs more in it because it's not a pandemic, it's some different type of emergency. I think this should be an emergency plan that would cover a multitude of things, not just a pandemic. And so I think where Dana went was, sometimes lives can be lost in an instant. You haven't got time to get a meeting. If you have one of those situations, the chairman should be able to invoke that thing instantly, bring everybody in, but maybe we can't meet for 48 hours, but he can bring in the people that are necessary for that crisis. So I think it needs a look, whether it's under government ops or under emergency services or who. I just think most of our policies are done through government ops, but I don't care where it gets looked at. It should get looked at. But I think right now we can't leave this until we're done working with the state and the way the governor's antics and the way he does things. We've kind of got to stick with it, but that's just my opinion.
I actually, thanks for bringing that up, Brian. Actually thinks it may be a joint operation because part is how operations go and part's public safety. So Sam, we can talk about that later and figure it out, but go ahead.
My only comment is, with all respect, Supervisor Campbell, I would like to point out that you used the word if it had been done right. This plan seems to have operated correctly. I think our incident management team and public safety did an excellent job. So for any supervisor to sit there and downgrade those employees by saying, if it had been done right, I think that's inexcusable. Okay, so you may want it changed, you may want something, but please don't say that had it been done right, because you people voted on it to begin with.
Sam, you cut out about halfway in there.
Where did I cut off?
I can hear it.
I heard him.
Let's hear Sam.
Yeah, we all heard.
Okay. Must
Dave?
be me. Day and a half.
I know we're kind of reaching far afield, but this plan is how to close the building. Yes, we should have an emergency plan where, there's things can happen within 48 hours, but this is specifically how to close the building.
I actually think after having read that, I don't want to get in debate about this because I think we move forward. But as I read the second part of it that governs ongoing operations, there is an immense amount of flexibility in identifying and bringing essential workers in, closing the building, finding different things going on. So I thought this was flexible enough after the initial first part said close the building. Then the second part of it talked about reacting to the circumstances versus keeping this entire thing going the same way through the entire endemic. And I think we've been extremely flexible identifying essential workers who can come in. How do we do that? In my opinion, other people may have a different opinion, but I think there's been a lot of flexibility in that, or else we wouldn't have people coming in. We would open BMV again. We wouldn't have people coming in for other things by appointment only. So, Dana?
Dave, when this plan was enacted, we didn't even think of Zoom. Things have changed where if this were to be reworded, we would maybe have provisions in there on how to meet remotely. This is almost a living document. It needs to be updated, modified, made better. Things changed out. But if we were to do this plan today, knowing what we know today, it would be worded differently because look how we're meeting right now. We're meeting remotely. Back when this plan was made, that wasn't the case. If you remember, it took us quite a few months even to figure out how to meet remotely. Our first meetings wasn't even Zoom. And then Dave, I think you said there's a better way of doing it, Zoom. So, I would like to see remote meetings, maybe part of this plan.
Sam said we'll put together a work study group to move forward on this and prepare for a better wording for future individuals. And we may want to backfill some of that after we look at the issues and may want to make some amendments to this plan. So your point is well taken, Dana. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else for the good of the county? Al Nolet?
I have a couple of comments and a request. First comment, in my opinion, for what it's worth, probably not a hill of beans, but I think this board has done an excellent job representing its constituents during the COVID crisis. So I commend you all for the way you've conducted yourself. The second thing I wanted to mention, I went over to Burgoyne Avenue on Saturday to get my first shot. And I wanted to commend everybody that's been working over at Burgoyne. That was a really, really as pleasant an experience as getting a shot can be. They were professional, they were efficient, right from walking in the front door to the buildings and grounds crews helping you through the parking lot. Everybody did a wonderful job. Melissa was there, Roger's been working there, our public safety team, our buildings and grounds team, our public health team, of course, our Cambridge Valley Rescue Squad volunteers that are working with the county. I just wanted to say how excellent an experience it was. It was way better than I had anticipated. So I just wanted to get that out there as well. My request is I got a notice of retirement on Monday, effective May 6th. So I wanted to come to this committee to request my backfill to be sent to personnel. Unfortunately, I won't know until personnel what I'm actually asking for because I've talked to Danielle and Melissa and I can foresee 3 different scenarios playing out depending on an internal canvas of what I need. So the results of that internal canvas is going to determine how I proceed with the backfill. So I know I need a backfill. I just won't know till personnel exactly what I need.
Okay, but you have started discussions with Danielle.
Yes, we had a great conversation
Good.
yesterday.
Moved by Brian. Do I have a second? Cassie? All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Dan Shaw?
Yeah, last month we discussed about sending a letter to the town of Argyle to see if they are interested in property on Summit Lake. And also Roger was going to reach out, and he said he had done it while we were in the meeting, to Larry about Washington Center acquiring any right-of-ways, easements or whatnot to the water line. And I see it's not on the agenda, and I thought it was going to be put back on the agenda this month.
Roger?
You got.
I don't know if
Melissa?
Roger's available.
Yeah, I'm here, but go ahead, Melissa, because we're all in the same meeting, so.
Yeah, we, Matt Jones and Roger and myself have been in contact with Larry, I probably several times since we last spoke about it. We're still in, conversation with centers, trying to figure out what it is, that they may be apprehensive about taking over or not. They've had some questions along the way and we're trying to answer those. We spoke to Larry yesterday and he was going to get a hold of centers, and we expect to hear from him shortly, I believe. So we are working on it.
How about the town of Argyle? Was the letter sent to the town or village of Argyle requesting their response as to whether they wanted the property?
No, because we need to know what we're giving them. And that's part of what we're negotiating with centers right now as to what's going to happen with that main pump house property there, or an ex pump house or ex valve house or whatever you want to talk about. So until we get centers straightened out, I can't tell Argyle what exactly they'd be getting, because centers is going to want, hopefully, if they're going to take over that easement, they're going to want ownership of some of the works that are at the top of that hill that control the on and off switch to go. So until that happens and they either accept an easement or whatever, I don't know what I can giving to Argyle. So sending them a letter that says, how'd you like to take something? I don't quite know what it is. I don't know how much it costs and I don't know how it's going to work, but are you interested? Seem to be kind of premature at this point until we had something worked out with centers. And centers has offered to let us continue to operate the pipeline while they pay us. So I think that's a fair thing to say to you, that offer came through. The response to Larry was, ours was, I haven't seen any great excitement to do that. But if I'm wrong in that respect, this would be the time to speak up and say, sure, for some amount of money, we'd be willing to get in the water business to centers.
Well, it seems like you'd also want to send a letter to Argyle because their wells are on that property and see if they're interested in retaining ownership and then work out a deal between everybody. But we don't even know where Argyle stands. If they say, no, we're not interested, we just want to keep our lease, you're going to have a whole different approach to Washington Center. I think you need to send them both and find out what's going on.
Argyle's got a permanent easement, not a lease. They're not going anywhere. They're there until they don't want to go anywhere else.
Right,
So
but we were going to offer them some ownership of that, correct?
Yes, but some ownership is what am I offering them? I don't know. Am I offering them the whole thing or part of the
they're
thing?
even willing to take ownership. That's why I think you need to find out from both parties and then negotiate the deal. I don't understand why I'm looking at this wrong, but if I am, I'm sorry. But if you don't know where anybody stands, you need to get everybody's position to be able to negotiate a deal.
Mr. Henke.
Well, I think our position has always been that we're certainly interested in pursuing it, but I think that Roger's right at this point until we know exactly what we're conveying and what we're talking about, I don't think there's something I could bring to the town board and say, hey, do you want to do this? Do you not want to do this? I think that, I'm glad that Dan is continuing to move this forward, but I don't think we're at the stage where the county is ready to send us a letter, at this point, because there's, like Roger said, what would they be actually offering?
Matt Jones?
This might make it a little clearer for Dan, just so you know, because there's the easement for the water line. That's what we're really trying to give away, is the easement. The property to us is just vacant land. It's not hurting us to have it or not have it, but the easement of the water that goes to the Washington Centers, that's what we don't want. So if we give the easement away, then you guys can decide whatever you want to do with the property and the Fargalls. It's kind of two separate things, and I don't know if that helps you actually look at it differently.
And it's not just the easement we don't want. It's the obligation or the thought of an obligation or a hint of an obligation that we have any obligation to send water down that hill. So the point is to say, if you want water, come and get the means by which you get it, get us the heck out of it. Then once we're absolved of that responsibility through probably an easement, then or a transfer of that easement, then we can go and do something else with that property, which would be subject to that easement. So if I went to Argyle now and I said, well, I'm going to sell that, I have an easement for water to go down to Pleasant Valley. I'm dating myself, down to Centers. And they said, okay, that's great. You're a good partner to work with. And then I all of a sudden turned around and said, well, you know what? I'm selling that easement I have to Centers. Good luck dealing with them. They're going to be your new involuntary, not tenant, but easement holder. We wish you the best of luck with that. They may have a completely different viewpoint of working with them versus working with us or somebody else. So that's why it seemed prudent to straighten out the Centers part first, then go to the town of Argyle if that's who you want to sell it to, and or transfer it to, for that matter, and transfer it.
Now, how long do you think that'll take? Because we've been working on it 2 years now for that.
It's on Center's schedule.
Is there any hope of a resolution here to all this?
It's on Center's schedule right now. Larry's been instructed to tell them that we need to come to a conclusion or else we're turning the tap off, because we have it's in their interest to get the water, not in ours. So hopefully we'll get a response to that. And anything further in this discussion here, I think I'd rather not have in open session.
Okay, so we'll get updated next meeting. Next Governor Knapp's meeting, Roger. Hopefully we'll have more clarity.
Hopefully there'll be a response from Centers. Again, no response from Centers, then you're going to have to make some hard decisions.
Okay. So it will be on the agenda for next month.
I can put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Ryan?
Nope.
Yeah, so I'm ready to change the subject and move on unless there's something else someone has.
Change the subject, please.
You're ready, huh? Anyway, so DSS got moved to the following week. I think they were supposed to be tomorrow, I believe. Is that right, Deb?
Yes.
That was an error on our part.
So it is tomorrow?
No,
No, but it's next week.
Yes.
Okay. So, back to our initial discussion on electric charging stations, we were kind of in order for everything to take place going through finance and the April board meeting, and here's why I'm bringing it up. Most all our cars are bought out of carpool, which would go through DPW. When DSS buys cars, they're bought out of DSS. With the date being where it is, I just want permission to go out for bid on these cars because it still wouldn't end up until finance and on the April board meeting, and we can always decline all our bids if we don't decide not to buy anything. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's a money issue. I believe probably the charging stations is going to come in about where it was, maybe a little better, don't really know. But at the same time, the cars are a different sort of deal. There's $30,000 in play here that is necessary for us to get for these cars to go into the carpool. And the reason I say that, the way it's set up with DSS, a car that's bought for $25,000 or less can go into the carpool in 3 years. If you pay more than that, there's a whole different set of rules. So what we were trying to do was have the least amount of risk available to the county in purchasing these cars. So I can tell from just seeing online, the cars are around the $26,000 to $28,000 range right on the lot. I'm not sure that the bid would get us under 25. It needs to for it to work. If not, we need the $5,000 off per car in the grant. And this isn't a grant where you get in advance. It's a grant you get after the car has been purchased. So it still works out in the long run, even if just a couple of cars actually get the grant. But I assume they all would get it if they're not out of money. So time is of the essence in that point. In other words, I wouldn't even be in a hurry. So I just want permission to go out to bid so we're on the same timetable as the charging stations. And if one fizzles, the other fizzles. It's very easy. So that's what I'm asking from this committee, is just to give permission to go out to bid, and then it'll move forward through the general channels of finance and the full board.
Okay. If I can get some of the committee to make that motion.
I'll make the motion.
Brian made motion. Do I have a second? Matt? Is that V for Victor or 2?
Peace.
I got
Oh, you saw two
Peace.
things? That's
Dan
You're number
Shaw?
one, Dave.
Yes. Are you bidding them as, for electric cars, or are you bidding them both ways? So we have a price comparison
Just
between.
as electric cars at this point, Dan.
Pardon me?
Just
I
as
didn't hear.
electric at this point.
Well, would it hurt to bid both of them so we have a comparison? Because that'll help show you the savings that you're looking at. It's not a big cost or anything to bid it both ways, is it?
No, the problem is if we're not gonna do anything electric, we would just buy the other ones at a certain time, because you're just gonna pay the full price anyway. I'm trying to get the $5,000 off.
Right, but until you have some comparison, because the point is the savings in the long run. If it costs you $10,000 a vehicle more up front, which I know isn't accurate, but if it did, then that helps you to create the comparison that you're going to need to determine what's the right thing to do. So I thought it should be both.
Okay, maybe I didn't explain it right, Dan. Either car, whether it's electric or gas, to come under the situation in DSS has to be under 25,000. So
Right.
That's the point. They're going to be under 25,000 for it to work anyway. I need to know that it works. So I have to bid this one. I can always buy a gas one that can come under 25. I can keep getting smaller until it fits, if we so well choose. So I'm trying to do this in advance just to save the money to get there on the electric. Because if we are going to do charging stations, I don't want to buy an electric car anyway because I can't charge it. But the difference, where the real savings is the 2.5 cents per mile in fuel compared to 7.5 cents per mile in fuel. That's the difference. And that's
Right.
day in and day out on every electric to gas car. So I'm not worried about the cost of the car because I can buy a car as cheap as I want to buy. It's just there's only one electric that I can get under that level right at the moment. And I'm trying to see what that bid price is so I can make a good decision and the board can make a good decision at the same time the charging station comes up.
Okay, so then we just need the approval to bid the electric cars. All in favor? Opposed?
Opposed?
I think the motion carries. Thank you, Dana.
You're welcome.
Anything else to come up before the committee? Yes, Brian.
Yeah.
Brian, you've had your moment in the sun.
No. This is just for Dana because I had an appreciation for this during the IDA meeting and Dave was a witness. So I think it's Hatcher Boat, have I got the name right?
Yes.
Hacker Boat is coming down, and they're gonna build a new facility here in our region. And the biggest thing for sales in Europe is if they can swap an electric motor into the boat. And they've come to where they can accomplish that now. So that's gonna be the big thing of the future. So I just wanted for Dana, and being in the boat, well, actually the ship industry, but you know, they're close. I thought you'd have an appreciation for that, Dana. So I wanted to throw that out there.
Brian, my experience is water and electricity do not mix very well,
Okay.
especially salt water. Salt water is even worse.
It's a good thing that Hacker Boats made that decision, not us. Matt Hicks?
Dana, how's your experience with water and oil mixing together?
The third largest oil spill in Valdez, Alaska has my name on it, so not very well.
All right,
And
anything else?
submersible water pumps actually have the electric lines go right through the water, so.
No,
All
you're
right.
right. You're right.
Anything else? Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you.